Hello and welcome to this, your third tutorial on the emissions calculator app. Today we are going to work with the app design section. That is, how to change the design and the layout of your website. I am sorry to say that most of this tutorial goes on the optional section. That means that these sections are not necessary for performing your task this week, though it explains in a very generic form how does Flask interacts with the design layout within the GitHub environment we have built beforehand. We're going to talk today about how the design aligns with the code machinery in Flask. Secondly, different ways of editing your Flask app design. And third, and I could say the most important part as it belongs to your task this week, how to change colors, text, and also favicon, and I will explain that later, in your existing app design. In a setting like this, I'm not afraid to say that if I have had to perform or develop an app where there's a close interactions with users, there's an important part that belongs to the aesthetics of the app. Meaning that I would not hesitate to either hire or associate with the software developer or software design developer. Without further ado, we're going to explain first of all, and here starts the optional section number 1, how does the whole infrastructure works behind curtains. If you do remember, we have in our GitHub repository some important files such as the app py that holds all the Flask code within a Python language. What it does is that it communicates to a proc file, that's another file inside the repository that we haven't talked about earlier. And that works pretty much as a communication standard, or you could call it specifications, that describes how a web server, namely the Heroku machinery, communicates with web apps, with the users, and how the requests and the transfers or the responses are handled within the app infrastructure inside your instruction in the Flask Python code. So importantly this week within the task tree, our important sector is going to be this section below here, that belonging to the templates. So what Flask does is, like behind curtains, they have an infrastructure called Jinja2 that is written in pure Python code that allows to dynamically embed the information handle from all the structure into dynamic templates. As far as you recall, and perhaps I could help you out with a fresh review, in our repository we got the proc file, that's this one over here. We got the app py section, that's here with the Flask code, and we got the templates inside a new folder. That template holds different HTML, call it HTML pages, and I will explain later on what does every page does. And this communicates to whatever is inside the app py that connects to here and whatever information the user provides. Right. If you want to have further information on that, I suggest you to go and check on, there's a lot of both tutorials and manuals online. You just need to type in WSGI, that stands for Web Server Gateway Interface. It's basically what it is, an interface. In here the templates are going to be all in HTML files, and for those that doesn't know what HTML is, it's basically a standard language designed so the standard web browser, call it Google Chrome, Firefox, Edge, Explorer, etc., could display information based on the standard setting. We will have an interesting experiment later on where you will get that more clear. Alright, talking about Jinja and describing it in a more specific way. Jinja is written basically in pure Python. It enables dynamic rendering of templates. That means that in the standard that we have created, Flask recognizes things inside the templates folder within this Jinja infrastructure. So Jinja, you could tie it up with layout of templates. It can also use Bootstrap to import information. Bootstrap, and this is also a new setting, is basically a very popular HTML designer. It has both free and premium versions, meaning that from Bootstrap we import the defaults, and what Bootstrap do for us is like it reduces the amount of code we need to introduce in our HTML files in order to deploy a nice website. For more information, you can go into the getbootstrap.com and you can check out how does it work, and particularly how can you embed a Bootstrap default layouts inside your website. Also, they also have very nice design that you can adapt to your code, things like this, but they are covered by a premium fee. Okay, very cool apps design they got for you up there. Alrighty, there are some examples of how Bootstrap and the HTML file looks like. If you want to get more examples of that, I prompt you to go on the templates in the repository. You can open any of those index as an example, and you check out that the syntax, some of the syntax that you got here goes in here. For instance, and as a very brief explanation, these are expressions. That means that this is not part directly of the code but of the layout. These with double curve brackets are output printing, meaning that there's information that comes from the API comes directly in here, and then you print out things directly from there. So there's a small trick that I like to teach you, meaning that it's not so easy sometimes to decipher, but you can adjust your templates directly via code, and you can do that by either going directly into the repository, open the file, and then editing within this pen, the same as it works with the README file. Or you could try to open or download and open the files directly from the download file. I will show you right now. The issue though is like you cannot go directly, because if you press directly it will just open something strange like this. Okay, so this is basically an HTML file but directly open on a browser. You would rather prefer to open it either on let's take this out just to make the point, either on Visual Studio Code. This is an app that you can download for free in Windows, for Windows, and I like it myself because it's very user friendly for code developers. You can check it out here. You have like colors, highlights, etc, etc. Or both, you can try to open it on a text file or a notebook. So it works the same for both Windows or text editor in Macs, right? Very good. So now we're going to explain how does the app itself works as we speak. If you do recall, I'm going to open the app prototype that I built for you. As soon as you call the app, this will take a bit to load, it will take you directly to a login website. The login website is rendered within the repositories in this index.html. So meaning that this is the first website that shows up in your screen as soon as you call the URL. Okay, well, not this occasion because I have to do that. Okay, so this is the index HTML page. Okay, as soon as you enter your credentials, what happens is that it will take you to the index HTML. So from the login, I have to correct, from the login side, you get to the index HTML that looks pretty much like this. Okay, this is, let's call it the home page. Then you got several options. You got either let's zoom this a bit. You got either, you can go to the list HTML page. That's basically this one over here. You can go to the add record HTML page. That's the website over here. No, I'm sorry. That's this one. Submit a new record. You could go to select record, and that's the website over here. And the error website doesn't show up unless you put an error or creates an error in here. For instance, we're gonna just call a page that doesn't exist. It will throw you the error page with information such as error 404, the page is not found, like this. You can also render error 405, the method is not allowed. And if you recall, in our first class when we were playing around with the app, we had a 500 error. That means that there was an internal server error. For my case, I knew directly that since there were many of you trying to access at the same time, the server just crashed. So it showed me that error. So this is quite important. The website also, within the select record, allows you to edit any of the records either by deleting them or editing them. That gives you an option inside here that throws you back again to this to another HTML. Remember, these are all templates within the templates file. This section, however, is dynamically updated, meaning that it will take information from the list HTML and just provide the necessary one. For instance, if you go on car, you check the URL, you will realize that the list HTML, called inventory for our case, has additional URL for car and only provides of car information. Okay, not a problem if you don't get to understand this at the first time. There's a lot of dynamic things happening behind curtains, and it takes a while for you guys to acknowledge this and to learn how to do it. So this is a slow process that takes a lot of practice and trial and error. I just wanted to explain it here so you can have an idea. Okay, now that we have explained already how the app works in terms of the design, we are going to teach now ways of how there are different ways to make app design. First, I'm going to pull out an option that I wrote for you guys on a different setting. That is basically this one. This is a Bunker app application I did before. And a way to perform, if you realize in here, is way different to what we have for Flask. In here, I embedded everything in an asset section and built up a CSS file. A CSS file stands for Cascading Style Sheets. So it's basically, I'm doing whatever Bootstrap do behind curtains, I'm doing it manually. So it would have different type of implementations. Let's call this one as a different type of programming language. So far we have seen HTML that could be recognized as a language, Python, a different language, CSS, another language, and Bootstrap behind bars also uses JavaScript. That is also a programming language. It's a programming language used majorly for functions in a website. Okay? I will not go deeper on that because it takes their own time to get around these things. All right, so CSS, one of the options. Also within Flask, it recognizes CSS if it is embedded behind assets and with the name style.css. The other way is the way that we are using so far as part of our development process, and that is using templates. So each templates belong to each of the pages that are engaged in our web application, meaning that even if the index link is connected to a hyperlink, then they should all be included in here. They have different types of setups, as you recognize from the emissions calculator app. All right, so having covered those sections, and if there's any question afterwards, I encourage you guys to send me an email or ask me directly if you happen to see me around, etc. So now we're going to start on section number 3, and that's the section for helping you out to edit your existing web design. As far as you recall, your web design, and I told you, wasn't supposed to have a lot of details behind it because I would have had to include additional coding that would have taken us away from the intended goal, that was like trying to know very basic structure and building up from there. So task 3 requires you to change colors on your app design, change text, and I also want to add how to change the fab icon. The fab icon is basically this section over here, or this image included in the browser tab that is directly or automatically read by the WSGI, as we explained on the optional part, or directly by the machinery, and renders it as part of your automatic information. Okay. So first thing first, we're going to talk a bit about the colors. If you realize you have some standard colors for all the websites embedded in your app. That's to say that perhaps you may not like the color, and that's totally cool. I do agree, I don't like it myself, though this is a very standard setting, so that's why I kept it. The first thing we like to know is, like, for the colors, there's a set of standards, at least on HTML, that is broadly extended to some other areas, and you will realize what I meant in a couple of seconds. There are basically a couple of standards on HTML. The one that I work mostly are either RGB, that stands for red, green, blue, and the X format. The RGB looks something like this. For instance, this RGB standard stands for the black color. If you write out 999, it stands out. I'm pretty sure it was for the white. I'm not that sure. No, sorry. The last number is 255. So 255, 255, 255 is completely black, completely white color. So a 4-digit, if you want to add a 4-digit, stands for opacity. That means like shades of the same color, meaning that if you include 0.5 behind here, you will have a half gray color. So A goes from 0.0 to 1.0, 1.0 standing for a full color, and 00 like for full opacity. The same happens in the hexagon, in the X standard. I'm gonna Google that because I forget how it's called. Hexadecimal color values. So in this way, you have a combination of 6 numbers that are the very basic, but if you include 2 more, then you include the opacity part. All right. I do believe that the best way to learn how to handle this one is playing yourself with the colors, and I encourage you perhaps to go on this website, coolors.co. Well, I would just start the generator without the signing in and see what does it show. You scroll in and you check out on this guy's website. You basically can choose color combinations, and every time you like generate or add additional colors, you can change out the colors that you like for your design. For instance, here he says that you can add several bars you like. You can lock those that you want to keep, and every time you press the space bar, it will change combinations that are quite cool together, right? So you keep pressing the bar, and then you keep choosing which one you like fix, so on and so forth. At the very bottom, you have the hex standard, let's call it not number but mix, and you can use those as part of your app. For instance, we like to keep for a while. What's a cool color for the app? I don't know. I have to put something random, otherwise I'm pretty sure that not everybody's gonna be happy with the ones that I choose. So let's put something fast. Doesn't look very nice though. Okay, so I'm just gonna take this value over here and copy it somewhere. So that's D614A. And then we go back to here. Alright, so now we got the color that we want to change. Now comes the part of changing it. So as you still haven't created your website yet, I encourage you to go to the prototype that we built, that you used at the very beginning. You could either access with the same account I gave you at the very beginning, or you can just stick to the logout website, and that's completely fine. Within Chrome, within Edge, or within several browsers, you could check out in a section, and you could look out for something called developer tools. The developer tools in here would allow us to pick up information from our website. For instance, if we press in this corner and we render to different areas, you will realize information from it. For instance, we're here at the body, and it gives you what the background in the body is, and this is a color that is by default in our website. So for instance, we want to change it for a while, and I repeat, this is not going to change anything in your GitHub Heroku. This is just happening in your browser. So we just put in the color that we get from the website. There you go, it changes directly. You just press there and it sticks. Perhaps we'd like to change the color of the submit button as well. Here are the colors. Something, you can either put this, you could put RGB, something 0, whatever, 2, 5. See how it works. Okay, it changes. The borders as well, let's change it to something directly called white. Sorry. Let's change it to white. And it changed directly the color, if you realize. Alright? I repeat, nothing happens when you change that in your browser through developer tools. That's just to give you a hint on how your website might look like if you happen to change the color. You can try different combinations, and once you're happy and satisfied, you take that combinations with you. You take the hex numbers, sequences, and you go back to your GitHub website repository. Okay, so let's say that we are happy, let's say, just for the sake of argument, that we're happy with the background that's set up here, this one. So we know for sure that that background needs to be edited in the login HTML and in all the HTMLs if we want to. So you can take as a guidance this structure here that tells how everything works. And for instance, for the login side, the one that you just saw, we can change the background by pressing in this pen and adjusting this number to what we had before, DD614A. And then, as you did with the README file, you commit the changes, and it will not show you. You will not see anything yet, because on the next class we're going to learn how to deploy the whole stuff, and it will collect the information from there, and then you will be able to see how your website looks like. Meanwhile, what I suggest you to do is like play around with the prototype, change out the colors, and go to your emissions app sections repository, and then to the templates. And if you like, you can change the color of all of them so they could remain consistent. Otherwise, you can change color on various forms. Okay, that's the first subtask for this week. The second subtask was about changing the information. For instance, you see that there's something called login that works as the top part of this website, of this page. If you go to your if you go to the template section in the login.html file and you edit it, you can change the title for something else. For instance, login for group 3. That's an example. And it will basically change that. And there's not much around it, right? Just for the login page, you only have that. But let's say that you got something additional on the index page that works as the main site. Let's access it. Okay, this one. Perhaps you want to change this that says emission calculator group for ENE 425. You can put something else. Once again, to the pen. We have the background here. We got the font size. This is if you would like to change the size of the information. And here you are emissions record ENE 425. Okay, this goes up here. This is the information that goes up here on the tab. All right. And the information for the main site goes down here. Emissions calculator for ENE 425. You can change out in here. Group 3 on class 2021, for instance. Be very careful with these ones. Try not to erase anything other than the text itself. Don't erase this, or otherwise the system, or at least the system will not recognize. I mean, it's not a big problem though, because we can fix it later on if it doesn't work. Okay, this works automatically. Also this one, and that will be basically enough. So your mission for this week, adjusting things to be more customized inside the HTML files. For instance, this one, the emissions record tab. You can keep this one as it is. Or basically the index HTML and the login HTML together with all the HTML colors if you prefer to have a different color. Remember, your colors goes in hex format included with a hashtag or a pound key. Let's call it pound key, that's a proper term. With a pound key, and then you add the sequence that you pick up from, for instance, this coolors.co. This one, etc. Okay. For the moment, I will keep it as it is, and I will just close this one. Okay, now to close up, the last part is a favicon part, and that's the simplest part that you will find. Favicon is inside the static site, and you can upload any image you find on Google. Let's make the search, google.com, and in there you find it. Let's look for a picture. Cat icon. I like to use icon because that gives me cool stuff in black and white that I can put over here. So inside in here you'll find images of cats with icons. Let's change them. Put the cool cat icon. Well, first I forgot to tell you, you need to set up the rights, because you cannot use freely any icon. So you should go on users right, create commons license. It works pretty much the same as it works with your MIT license, meaning that you can use freely without the requesting permission or anything. Let's look for a cool black and white icon. This one looks cool. You save the image. Okay, you can save it in your desktop or whatever, and you just call it favicon. And then that's the one that you're going to upload to your repository. You know what? I can actually change the one that I got so far. So in here, what we're gonna do, okay, let me check if this is a correct favicon. Okay, it's called the same as the one that we have there. We just pull or drag and drop to upload the files. What I will do is, like, since they have the same name, it will just replace the old file with the new file. We commit the changes. Okay, it should be done by now. Alright, we have our new cat there. Very nice. Alrighty, so that's the way to change out the favicon. Now to wrap up. So what do we learn today? First of all, those that follow the optional path, you learn how to design. The design aligns with the code machinery in Flask. I have to once again restate that this was a very, very generic and very simple explanation, though this has a lot of material behind it, and it's just, it could be a profession by itself. You can have people working just as designer of websites, so keep that in mind. Then we saw like two different ways of editing your Flask app design, either through static CSS, cascading style sheets, or the way that we're doing by templates in HTML, inputted with Bootstrap standard setups or standard options. Right? At the end, for the task, we learn how to change colors and text in our existing app design, and I can add here that we also learn how to change the favicon with the favicon PNG file inside the repository. Alright, so the task for this week are, I will divide that for the sections, or at least for the development groups. The app developer group should change the color, the text, and the favicon inside the app. The diary group should propose, and I encourage you to use pics that you can check out from my own website, the prototype. You can take print screenshots, and then you can put pointers, and you can put stuff in either Paint, Photoshop, or any other graphical interface. And I prompt you to include those as part of the diary in the README file. Also include some text that with the answer and the question, what would you adjust design-wise of the app to make it look cooler, to make it look better. Then the method group. I'm sad to say that we're falling a bit behind with the methods. We do have some groups including the methods. And that's perhaps on me, because I should remind you that at least for the groups, and I will pull this up, every week you have a manager, it's true, but there's a group of people that also should be contributing to the development of that progress that week. The manager task is only, or together with doing the specific task, is like managing the other people working with them for a specific week on a specific task, on the things that they should do, or at least the things that are pending. Remember also in using the project section, and that in that we're also falling a bit behind. Remember that in every group I have included a project section in every repository where I have added some examples on how you can do your Kanban progress management. Remember, is that diary group the ones that needs to develop on this. Once again, there's some people that has done that already. Fantastic. Once again, don't put all the responsibility only on the manager. The manager should help himself with other groups of the team. And to do that, you can rely always on the Excel file that we have uploaded for you. We had information on every single week what's supposed to do. You organize as you wish. So far, this is week 3, and we still have people that hasn't enrolled. Remember that even though we mentioned that this is a group, this is a working group. Those that are not belonging to this, I do believe it's the fair thing to do, to give grades only to those belonging or at least working actively within the groups. Otherwise, I do believe we are not going to reach the goals for all of you guys. We don't want anybody to fall behind, so that's why we're encouraging you. If you have any role, if you haven't done task 1, please get up to date because the material is accumulating already. So try to be brief on that. If is there any question, if you are stuck within any of the section, please let me know. I will be very happy to assist you step by step to get you through. Okay, with that said, I appreciate very much your attention. I'm closing this tutorial now and hope to see you on next week breakfast meeting. See you.